McLeod, you're live.
Super, thank you. And I will call to order this meeting of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee on June the 7th, 2021, by acknowledging that Collingwood is located on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the earth and vital contributors to our society. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. The motion being that the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda for June 7 be adopted as presented. Councillor Berman and Vice Chair Madigan. And are there any questions, comments, queries, or corrections for those minutes from the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the agenda, and business arising from the previous meeting, number 3 on our agenda. Any business arising from the previous meeting? Item 4, declarations of pecuniary interest. Any declarations of pecuniary interest from members of this committee? Item 5, deputations, and we have 2 of them this evening. Item 5.1 is a deputation from the Collingwood Climate Action Team regarding the Community Carbon Footprint Challenge. And I will welcome Dr. David Orling and Brian Vermander to our meeting to make this presentation. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks very much, Chair McLeod. And members of the committee, we appreciate this opportunity very much. Sarah, we have a slide presentation to put up if that could go up, please.
Thank you. We are starting it. Did you have another participant that was joining you? We don't see them in our attendee list here.
Yeah, so Brian Vermander, who's a member of our leadership team and is the project lead for this, was planning to join and help answer some questions. I'll go through the presentation myself. And hopefully Brian will be able to give you in on the meeting as well.
All right, there we go.
2 of us signed up so that we could make sure we had somebody here. Anyways, okay, thank you very much. If I could get the first slide up, please. So I'd just like to give you a brief update on what we've been up to. We've been up to lots and we've been quite busy over the winter months. We've been hosting our community gatherings, which we're now calling them, and we had a very successful one on Earth Day. We appreciate very much Mayor Saunderson attending and some of the other council members, as well as our MP Terry Geddes was in attendance as well, which was great. We had a wonderful poem presented by the Poet Laureate of the town, Claudia Ferraro, which set the stage for it, and it was a really, I think, well received event. We have another one coming up. I'll get a plug in for June 24th when we have a community gathering on investing in a healthy planet. And we have MMA Bucket, who is a CCI student, who is a very talented musician who's going to be with us that day as well. And we're looking forward to that. We've had monthly working group meetings. We've had our Voices film, video, and book club discussions. We had the 30 Days of April Biking Challenge, which was very successful and well received. There's been lots going on, and we've been quite active in that respect. We've still been working on developing more relationships and partnerships. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the town very much for granting us a community and culture grant, which is helping to support this project. We've been working with the Institute for South Georgian Bay, helping them with their Sustainable Future series, and they're supporting us financially as well with the project that I'm going to be talking to you about today. We're still looking for other businesses and organizations to support this and give us input, and hopefully we'll find some other sponsors as well to help support this as we go forward. The other partnership that we've been working on that I alluded to before when I presented to council back in, or committee back in November, is Project Neutral, who I'll tell you a little bit about, who is organizing our data collection and the carbon footprint calculator that we're going to be using. So I'll ask you just to move to the next slide. I'll give you a little overview of the Community Carbon Footprint Challenge. So we've tried to come up with a fairly innovative way to get a baseline footprint of households in the community, and that's the goal of this project in the first year. So we're calling this the Community Carbon Footprint Challenge, and it's a challenge because we want to get as many people to get involved as possible and to make it a collaborative event that people will enjoy participating in and hopefully get something out of, as well as put something into. We wanted to get moving on this because, as Antonio Guterres has said, this is a crucial year in the fight against climate change, and we need to move forward. Our carbon budget is shrinking, so now's the time to act. Could I get the next slide, please? So I'll give you a general overview as the way that we're going to organize this. Initially, our focus is on Collingwood, but the plan as we move forward is that this will expand regionally, and participation won't be limited strictly to people that live in the town of Collingwood. We know many people that do their business here, work here, participate in clubs and the like here, live outside of the L9Y postal code. So participation will be to those who want to take part, but we'll mainly be looking at the data from our town itself. We're targeting 370 or more Collingwood households, and we're doing this by household. However, the general organization is that we'll have a team-based approach, so that people will enter, or households will take part in the challenge along with others in a group. And the groups will be 5 or more. I'll explain to you sort of what kind of groups we're looking to find, but one of the things that we want to make sure that we do is that people that don't have a group to be a part of and want to participate will have a way to include them as well. We think that's very important. There'll only be one footprint that will be done for each household, and potentially a household could belong to more than one team because there's more than one person in a household. And we think that that'll provide a nice network and a web of ideas going forward, and keep some interest in that respect. We plan on having resources online and events in person to support this and to provide people with ideas going forward. Some of it through our website, some of it with Collingwood specific links through the Project Neutral website. We would like to see the town of Collingwood help support us with the social media and online information as well. And we will be hosting workshops through our group for those that want them, and some other events as well that people can get more information on about this. As mentioned, the initial impetus is to get a baseline in the first year. We plan on doing remeasurements going forward, and that will allow us to assess for progress and identify what's effective as far as interventions go to help us reduce our carbon footprint, hopefully. Next slide, please. As far as the data goes, as mentioned, it'll be completed by individual households. It'll remain confidential, and we'll have it linked to postal codes so that people won't be identified as to what their actual footprint is. And we don't plan on sharing that information directly to the public, because we want people to report their information honestly, and that's the best way to get good data. As mentioned, a household can belong to more than one group. Project Neutral has familiarity with doing this type of thing before in Toronto, London, and Waterloo. So we have a robust partner there that we're working with. If I could get the next slide, please. So Project Neutral has an online calculator. The calculator is very simple to use, and it allows us to collect data, store data, and ideally measure and compare data longitudinally over time. Can I get the next slide, please? It only takes about 10 minutes to initially enter your data in there. There's a getting started button that lets you put in fairly simple numbers. And then there is more sort of robust tools that you can use if you want to get in more detailed information and get sort of a more refined footprint for your household. You can enter in home energy bills, specifics with respect to your vehicle, and it will use that to sort of get you a more focused, more accurate footprint. Could I get the next slide, please? So I'll just talk to you about some of the principles in terms of how we plan to structure this. And I think our unofficial theme is that we're in this together. And coming out of the pandemic, we think that community is very important. There's going to be an appetite for people to get involved in things, hopefully. And I think that people have been talking a lot and looking a lot at about quality of life, shifting the way that we do business and the way we live our lives, building back better. You hear about lots of these themes, and I think that this is a good time for us to move in this direction. The climate challenge is obviously a big one as well. We've learned a lot of lessons from the pandemic, and hopefully we can apply those to the climate crisis as well. The next slide, please. The general idea is that this is a challenge and not a competition. We want this to be supportive. We want it to be inclusive. We want it to be collaborative. We want people to be able to share what they're doing and what they found to be successful. And it's not a, our footprint is lower than your footprint type of exercise. It's a, hey, here's what we've done, and we found that this has worked for us, and this has been successful. I think we'll have lots of opportunities to share the successes and promote, what people have been up to. And if we're creative about how we do it, then we'll see lots of action and improvement as time goes forward. The general idea initially, as mentioned, is to get the baseline footprint and to build awareness with it. But as people start into this, they're going to start working on things. I think that's a natural progression, especially when you see numbers in front of you. I can say that from experience. And so we're going to sort of get rolling with things right away. But the idea, as mentioned, is to get the baseline in the first year. Could I get the next slide, please? We think this ties in really well with the UN Sustainable Development Goals project. Certainly there's lots of co-benefits to doing this kind of work. We get cleaner air, improved health, hopefully economic savings in the future. We recognize that the SDGs are interrelated, and we think that this project sort of fits in nicely and ties in nicely with that. The next slide, please. So what kind of groups are we hoping to get involved? We'd like organizations to get involved, local businesses, clubs, churches and schools, social groups, neighborhoods, basically anybody. Obviously, we want to get a good representative sample of the town, and we have to make some efforts to make sure that we reach out to people that may not otherwise have the opportunity to participate or may not get the information directly through emails or websites or use those regular channels. But the idea is to have this spread fairly far and wide. And as mentioned, some of the organizations or businesses that might be involved will have participants who might live outside of the town of Collingwood. Their data will be available in our database, and moving forward, we hope to expand this and for it to grow regionally, and it will provide us with some baseline data already from some of those other areas by doing it that way. The next slide, please. We're going to be focusing on the citizens part of the circle. Obviously, there's intersections with the municipality, and I'll talk about that in a second, and with businesses and organizations as well. When the municipality, when the town starts working on the FCM PCP program, that circle will be taken care of. The business organization side of things, hopefully by engaging the employees and participants in these other organizations, we'll get some of the businesses and organizations to get on board as well and start looking at their own activities and things. Next slide, please. So we're really excited to announce that our pilot project is going to be starting fairly soon with the town green team, and we'd like to extend a special thanks to Claire Reyes for helping organize this, and for the members of the Greener Collingwood team that are going to participate. They're actually going to do some of the workshops that are optional, and then help us to tweak some of the processes and things in terms of how we get people onboarded for this, find out what works and what doesn't going forward. And so we're really excited about that, and we really appreciate that. And I think that's a great example of a partnership with the town, with them taking part from the get-go. Next slide, please. So just in closing, sort of what's my ask to the committee here today? Ideally, we would like the town to continue to lead by example. We see Collingwood as a model community. We know you do as well. We challenge the council and the town leadership to ideally form a team. As mentioned, the ask of you is really nothing other than to honestly enter some data in there and keep an open mind, and going forward, see where this goes. I think that would set a really great example, and would be a big help to us. We'd appreciate assist in promotion of this going forward. We have some online electronic tools and things that we'll be using. We know the town has some as well, and leveraging that social media and the like will be very helpful for this. Certainly moving forward with the climate specialist position is something that we'd like to see happen. And we know from the CAO's Q1 report that's was presented earlier at the SISC meeting that that's in progress, and we're very happy about that. And certainly we'd like you to share our vision for getting businesses engaged, and ideally sort of moving this forward regionally in the future. Any conversations that you can have with people in the community would be very helpful to us in terms of developing support and the like. Next slide, please.
You're just at the end of your 10 minutes, just to let you know, Dr. Orley.
Oh, and I'm done.
Oh, perfect then. See,
And
that
so
worked
if there's
beautifully.
any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm not sure if Brian actually was able to join us or not, but
Yeah, he's here.
great.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Hi, Brian.
So I think at first I turn it over to the public, don't I, Clerk Almus, and see if there's any questions from our attendees. Yes.
Normally, we leave it to if there's a resolution resolving out of.
So then I'll turn to, oh, there's the committee with some questions. Mayor Saunderson.
Actually, I was just going to solve the resolution quandary and put a resolution on the floor that town council form a team and participate in the carbon footprint analysis. Now, I don't know if that requires public feedback or not.
Well, it is a resolution, so that might open it up to, we do have someone interested from the public wishing to address the committee. I will allow them to speak if the chair would permit.
Happy to hear more.
All right, we have Mr. Matthew Pretty.
Good afternoon, friends. Oh, I'll go to the quiet room here. Yeah, long story short, those opportunities will be probably best designed with a bus. If you could get a bus to get people on the bus, then I was thinking about this, like in a normal way, if you get people on a bus, you could take people to the sites that you want to do the work and, you know, get people on board and meet up at the schools and the churches as things unfold. And who knows, if you could get a group of 30 people, you could probably do a lot of work and get things done. So good work, and definitely an organization to lean towards. I can see where this is going. So thanks for your time, and I look forward to seeing the activities that you have planned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so I will turn to the mayor who brought a resolution, and we will ask for a seconder to get it on the table to have some conversation regarding it. There is Councillor Berman. Any comments, Mayor Saunderson, on this?
Just to thank Dave and Brian and your team at the Collingwood Climate Action Team for bringing these initiatives forward. Councillor Berman brought a motion last year to declare a climate action emergency. And as part of that, we are also looking at action items, not just waving our hands. So it seems to me that while we at Town Hall are going to be moving forward with our carbon footprint for our municipal facilities, it would make sense for council to participate in this as well, because this is an important issue, and we are trying to lead by example, and would be happy to join arms with the climate action team on this.
Any other comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, I have a question. Is your intention, Mayor Saunders? Well, actually, I will turn to Mr. Orling or Dr. Orling. Is the intention of this project to measure for or to reduce once we've measured? Are we like setting a here's where we actually are because we want facts about how much carbon we're using, how big our carbon footprints are?
Brian, do you want to go ahead? I'll let you answer that, okay?
I thought you might. It is actually to do both. In order to measure something, we need a baseline. So we're going to do this first step as a baseline. And as a result of that, as David mentioned, there will be tools and resources available immediately to them to take action items to reduce their carbon footprint. You may not have noticed, but on Project Neutral, it basically gives us 6 buckets of data. And you can pick the one with the biggest footprint and do something about it, whether that's energy, food, transportation, or whatever. And then the challenging part and the fun part is then going to be sometime in the future to do it again and to see how everybody's been doing. So I can give you a personal example. I've done it a couple of times over the last year and a half or so. My 2 big reductions were I bought an electric car, and then I did it a few months ago during the pandemic, and I put 0 travel in, and my footprint dropped dramatically. So there are a few things we can do right away, but you get the feedback immediately from the data. So yes, it's actually to do both.
Thank you. As a part of this resolution, councillors will receive information on how to get involved and how to do all that stuff. Super. Well, on that note, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution? There you go. That was easy. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We move on now to item number 5.2 on our agenda, which is also a deputation. This one from Michael Ryan and Eva Meriorg. Oh, please tell me I said that correctly. From the Simcoe County Food Security Framework. And they are, sorry, on behalf of the Simcoe County Food Council, and it's about the Simcoe County Food Security Framework.
Certainly, we're just going to join the deputants now.
There's Mr. Ryan.
And is Eva joined or not?
We're working on it, I think.
She's not joined yet. We're trying to get her in. All right, so Eva has joined us. She'll just need to unmute herself and turn her video on.
I guess I'll start. My name is Michael Ryan, and I'm one of the coordinators for the Simcoe County Food Council, which is, we were tasked to implement the framework that was developed by the County of Simcoe. Eva is joining us. She's a member of the Food Council, has been active in food security and food work. And I'm going to turn it over to her to do the majority of the presentation.
Hello and welcome. You have 10 minutes.
Eva has duplicated.
Yeah, there's two of her.
We shared a presentation. Is it possible to get it put up?
Yes.
Am I in now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. I'm actually going to be doing the presentation if that works for all of you.
Yeah, so I introduce myself, so you go ahead, Eva.
Okay, great. So next slide, please. So we're here today to introduce our new Food Council. And so the first slide gives you a little bit of background as to how we began. As you can see from the timeline, there are fundamental steps and events that have taken place over the last 10 years and have allowed the Simcoe County Food Council to come to fruition. The Food and Agriculture Charter was created in February of 2013 by the community for the community to create awareness and foster participation to ensure a food secure future for Simcoe County. By supporting local actions consistent with the Charter, individuals, businesses, organizations, and government can all play a role in creating a healthy future for Simcoe County. This document is still a significant piece of work. We will do as much with it in the council as possible. In May of 2017, members of the Simcoe County Poverty Reduction Task Force participated in a local ministerial regional roundtable. We were talking about provincial food security strategy and addressed physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. In June of 2017, the Council of Simcoe and community partners hosted a local food security forum. It became evident there that there's a broad community interest in increased research in local food needs and the implementation of a county-wide food action plan for food security. An overview of the forum was brought forward to the Simcoe County Committee of the Whole and the recommendation to engage a consultant. Economics was the successful consultant team and are based out of Pickering. Through extensive community consultation and an advisory committee, the Simcoe County Food Security Framework was presented to Council in the fall of 2019. Next slide, please. So the Simcoe County Food Security Framework is a blueprint for furthering awareness, coordination, and development of approaches designed to enhance food security for all residents in Simcoe County. The framework leverages existing strengths, initiatives, and programs that are currently working to create a food secure community and foster further collaboration between all sectors of the food system. The framework builds upon the County of Simcoe Food and Agriculture Charter, outlines core strategies with specific measurable results, and integrates a food policy council with existing food-related committees. The framework link has also been included in the material provided. Next slide, please. With the framework, the Simcoe County Food Council can use this blueprint for future actions. The council uses a constellation model, which is a governance framework supporting collaboration of multiple organizations. The council has dedicated working tables for the many areas of food systems work and support the development of community capacity and sharing for current resources. Next slide, please. So our vision, we envision a sustainable, equitable, and secure local food system in Simcoe County that recognizes food as a human right. It is an interconnected food system where safe, sufficient, nutritious, culturally appropriate food is financially and physically accessible to everyone through dignified means, and where people are actively working towards realizing a more food secure Simcoe County. Next slide, please. These are our goals. Number one, to raise awareness and understanding about household food insecurity in Simcoe County. And I have to say, from a personal perspective, people don't understand what food insecurity is. When I talk about it, they kind of look at me quizzically like, what does that mean? So that's a big, big task. Number two, support income and housing solutions to reduce household food insecurity for households who are underserved and or marginalized. Number three, to increase physical access to enough nutritious food for all. Number four, to improve community food literacy. And this is a huge one. People really don't know about food. And as a former educator, I can tell you the knowledge base about food is very, very low. People just know how to zap something in packages and don't know where it comes from or even what's good for them. Number five, to improve community food infrastructure and policy to support the local agri-food sector and ensure a sustainable local food system in Simcoe County. Number six, to foster Simcoe County's food traditions and Indigenous food knowledge and culture. And number seven, to support countywide collaboration towards a food secure Simcoe County. Next slide, please. So the new Simcoe County Food Council has done well to push through COVID-19 and begin implementing the work of the many recommendations and pursue areas of focus from the framework. At this time, we've created and are part of 6 working tables and networks. So these include food banks, Simcoe County Working Table. We've been able to link the various food banks throughout the county so they can talk to each other and learn from each other. Food literacy and food programs working table. Of course, I'm on that one being the educator in the group. Agriculture and local food systems. Equity, diversity, and inclusion, which I know council is very adamant about working towards as well. Community gardens in Simcoe County. Here's another area where we've been able to link people who run community gardens throughout the county, and they've been able, again, to learn from each other and compare notes and share knowledge. Our council is also a member of the Simcoe County Poverty Reduction Task Group, and we're currently exploring the concept of sub-regional food assets and asset mapping to know where all of our community assets are. If you're looking for more information about these working tables, more details can be found at the end. Next slide, please. This graphic is a visual representation of the many layers of work related directly and indirectly to the role of the Simcoe County Food Council. As we noted before, it's a complex issue, and it isn't only about food production and food skills. At the top, we identify that policies to address household food insecurity and community food security are critical to ensure people have consistent access to food. And although these terms seem similar, they're quite different. Next slide, please. So the differences. Household food insecurity is a household food insecurity is experienced when individuals or a household lacks the financial resources to access food. It can be influenced by cost of living, job security, social issues, social assistance rates, etc. Poverty is the main cause of household food insecurity. Community security, food security, is a condition in which all community residents have access to a safe, culturally appropriate, nutritionally adequate diet through a sustainable food system that maximizes community self-reliance and social justice. This addresses many layers of food access and includes community services, food safety, and support for the agri-food sector. If we may, we'd like to take a moment to reinforce the realities of household food insecurity from a national, provincial, and local level so that the context is more understandable. Next slide, please. So, based on Statistic Canada's Community Health Survey in 2017-2018, at the national level, here is the reality of household food insecurity. 1 in 8 Canadian households are food insecure. 1 in 6 children in Canada live in food insecure households. 11.8% of couples with children under 18 were food insecure, but this rate rose to 21.6% for male lone parent households and 33.1% for female lone parent households with children under 18. So 1/3 of households run by females, 1/3 are food insecure. The highest rates of food insecurity were found among households where the respondents identified as Indigenous, Black at 28 and 28.9% respectively.
Ms. Meriorg, I'm going to let you know that you're at 10 minutes.
Oh my, okay.
I can give you a 20% contingency.
Thank you. So next slide, please. I'll just whip through this to say that household food insecurity provincially reflects the national, and let's go directly to the local. Next slide. So again, one back. Yeah. No, let's go to the next one. Let's do Simcoe County. Sorry. So 11.4% of Simcoe residents are living in poverty. 12% of the population 25 to 64. Median employment locally income is less than the provincial average. So one of the other factors is that we have many part-time and seasonal workers. So the shoulder season, we know people are earning less. And this is slightly dated information, and we know that all of these figures have increased now. Okay, next slide. So what does this mean at a municipal level? We need to look at the assets that we have and also the municipal policies that can help with food security locally. Next slide. So as we move forward, we would like Collingwood to be part of the conversation. We're asking Collingwood Council to endorse the framework, which would mean 3 important things. Number 1, acknowledging that household food insecurity is a priority and recognize municipalities have a role to play through planning and economic development. Number 2, help support existing food assets. And most specifically today, we are looking for council to appoint a point person to collaborate with the Simcoe County Food Council for all future work. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments from this committee on the presentation we have just seen? Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Eva and is it Paul? Mike, sorry, Mike, I see up the corner. I know you indicated that some of your statistics are dated. I'm just wondering if you have a sense of what the COVID pandemic has meant for those suffering or on the fringes of food security issues.
It's been made much worse because people can't eat food banks. People weren't able to attend as much as they wanted to. Transportation's been an issue. It's been much heightened and worse than it was before pre-pandemic.
And the biggest driver at the food banks working table, we meet monthly with all the food banks in St. Vincent de Paul and Salvation Army across the county. And what you saw after the 2008 crisis was food bank usage does not peak for about 1.5 years after a recession, because food banks have a stigma attached to them, and it's people will sell their car or burn through their savings before they will access a food bank. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the community as a whole came together and donated in large amounts to the food bank, and the food banks said, whoa, we have enough food. What we really need is financial assistance so that when the awareness around COVID and what's happening is down and people start using the food bank, that's when we'll need the assistance. So food bank, we saw, it was actually spring of this year before we saw a rise in usage at the food banks, and a lot of comments around the county of tenants being evicted or they've suffered a loss of a job, applied for CERB inappropriately, or when they weren't qualified. And it's now that they're starting to feel the ramifications of those decisions that were made or losing a job 12 months ago. So there's definitely been a big effect across the county, and sometimes it's not always when we think it is. There's a delayed response to people accessing supports for that are household food insecure because of that stigma attached to it.
Thank you. And maybe just to follow up, if I could.
Yes.
There has been some discussion about this as the county, and as we see some of the support programs have been put in place for a number of our population that have been relying on shelters and other support services. The feeling is that once that emergency funding dries up, that we might see a real increase in those issues in our community. Do you guys have any sense of either of those issues?
Mike?
Yeah, I think the general, one of the topics at the food banks working table currently is about connecting with other resources, right? People that use a food bank, there's other resources in the community that they could be utilizing. And there's lots of service providers that are helping vulnerable populations that the biggest thing is trying to connect them with services. Lots of them have done all that they can do, but how do we connect these people with other services in the county that they can also help and support them? And it's definitely getting more dire in places where there's cases where that emergency assistance that has come through COVID, that extra financial resources is drying up. And also affordable housing is a big issue right now at many of them. People facing evictions for their housing has been sold or is being renovated, and a lack of affordable housing is a huge issue towards being household food secure. When your rent is eating up all the income you have, it's very hard to find assistance in any other means.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of this committee? All right then. Oh, Vice Chair Madigan.
Thank you very much, Michael. Nice to meet you, and Eva, my fantastic ex-neighbor. Nice to see you again. Thank you very much for what you've done in the community. I have a question for either of you that can answer this. A couple weeks ago, I took a phone call. I was in Barrie at a medical appointment, and somebody that reached out to me from the community dinners that are happening at the churches. And they said even through COVID, they were very active. I was very proud of Ron Manette and team. Are you working with them in accessing food and supporting whatever they can do? They've reached out to me saying that Cobb's Bakery is brilliant, but bread can only go so far. We need other things. But it's unfortunate even through COVID that they're delivering alone up to 400 meals once a month. So if we extrapolate that through 30 days a month, we might see a lot more need.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of our work certainly is to accumulate what all of the community assets are and to try and link them and to connect people to what's available. Mike, do you have anything to add?
I think the important thing to think about the Food Council is that we have that constellation model is about supporting organizations in the community and connecting them. It's not about reinventing the wheel. So a great example of that is at the food banks table. Through the other working tables, we came in contact with the student nutrition program. And with COVID, volunteers that run the student nutrition program and what the school board would actually allow in for snacks was completely changed the model the student nutrition program could work under. Well, the food banks have resources, they have volunteers, they have a commercial kitchen that are able to access bulk buying to get product. And so a great example of that was the Sharing Place in Aurelia was able to redeploy assets and with very little outlay from them was able to feed 900 students a week in conjunction with the student nutrition program for making that connection, which was a big impact, right? And I think your example too about connecting organizations that are doing and that cross-reference between people that are asking supports is a big part of what the Food Council is about. Is we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We want to go out, find organizations that are making a big impact about household food insecurity. And how do we leverage those assets? How do we connect them with other organizations that are looking to do more or have the capabilities that one doesn't? And then out of that, we're going to run into policy, bang our head against policy issues, which then will funnel upwards to the Food Council and we can advocate for, right? So it's a two-way street is the governance model we're looking for.
And nothing further. All right, any other questions or comments then? All right, and we will then thank you for,
just to remind, maybe to discuss in council if someone would be interested, available to be the point person for this committee. So just to highlight that, because that is our ask for today. Please and thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We will take that forward in our minutes to the next council meeting that this reports up into.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to item number 6, which is reports and minutes of other committees and boards. And so the recommendation on the floor is that the minutes of the various committees and boards provided be received and that recommendations contained therein be approved. And we're looking at 6.1, which is the Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes from May the 20th of 2021, the Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes from May 13th, 2021, the Museum Advisory Committee minutes from May the 20th of 2021, and the Trails and Active Transportation Advisory Committee minutes from May the 13th of 2021. May I have a motion to accept these minutes, please? Vice Chair Madigan, Mayor Saunderson is the seconder. Any comments, questions, corrections, or queries about any of these minutes from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll call the vote on accepting them. And there we go. Thank you. The consent agenda. And we have 3 items on the consent agenda, and I will ask for a motion to get those items on the table. Councillor Berman, Vice Chair Madigan, Any of these items, including item 7.1, Chatham-Kent support for MFIPPA, time for change, Township of the Archipelago banning unencapsulated polystyrene foam, and also Township of the Archipelago Environmental Protecting Amendment Act regarding microplastics. So the recommendation on the table is that the standing committee receive the general consent agenda. Anyone want to pull any of these items for direction? Mayor Saunderson.
Not for direction, just for a pitch. 7.3, the microplastics filtration system. We are partnering with Georgian Bay Forever in Collingwood, and they will be implementing 300 microplastic filters in the town, and then measuring the result at our sewage treatment plant. And it turns out that a very high percentage of the microplastics that are being found in the environment are actually coming from our clothing, and they are getting into the food chain, and they're now showing up in humans. So this is just a call out that if anybody is interested in participating in the program, they can contact Brooke Harrison at Georgian Bay Forever. You can go on the Georgian Bay Forever website and find out her contact information, or you can phone probably Town Hall to get her information as well, and be one of 300 households participating in this very interesting and important pilot project. That's it. Thank you.
Terrific. And I forgot a paragraph on our motion, and further that the information and opinions provided in the general consent agenda items are those of the authors and not verified or approved as being correct. We had a mover and a seconder. I'm going to call the question on accepting the consent agenda. There we go. Thank you. Carried. Item number 8 is staff reports. And the first one we're going to hear from is the HR manager, Melissa McQuigg. Why don't I know how to say that? I should. Melissa, I'm handing it over to you.
Thank you, Chair McLeod. Good evening, committee members. Historically, there's been little demand for administrative services at our municipal offices in late December. In the last few years, municipal offices were allowed to close between Christmas and New Year's with no negative impacts to the public. This afforded an opportunity for some maintenance work to be performed in administrative facilities without impact to operations. And last year, and likely this year, this will provide some respite for staff to use up some vacation time they may not have had the opportunity to use during the pandemic, considering how often we're having to revisit our operations as restrictions change. For 2021, administration is proposing that municipal offices be closed starting the afternoon of December 24th. That would be a statutory holiday for non-union staff, and reopening January 4th. So to facilitate this, staff would have to request 2.5 vacation days to cover the period for December 29th through to the morning of December 31st. And any staff that may not have vacation entitlements left can certainly make arrangements with their supervisor to continue to work. It would just mean that our customer service desks would not be open to the public. Limited or no disruption to the public is anticipated by allowing these offices to be closed. And in the report, we've outlined what our plans are right now for each department as far as operations that will continue or that will not be offered during those periods. So as I mentioned, customer service counters would be closed, but things like transit pass reloading, we do expect that to be online, hopefully in the next few weeks, but certainly in time for December. But new transit cards would still have to be purchased, and the library will be operating on a holiday schedule. So those services should be available there. And things like downtown monthly parking passes are available through the new hotspot app that people can use on their phones. As far as other payments, they can be made online or dropped off at the drop box at the front door of Town Hall to be processed January 4th, and no late fees would be incurred at that point. Several departments will still be regular operations such as fire, public works, and water, wastewater. And there will be some departments such as culture and events, rec facilities, rec services, and the library, as I mentioned, operating on a holiday schedule. So if approved, The closure would be advertised in advance to the public through multiple channels, as well as information on alternate ways to access services and emergency contact numbers. And we would also post notices at town facilities. We would be aiming to do all of that by the beginning of December so that people have time to consider alternate service arrangements. And I think that's it.
Thank you. And so I'll need a motion to get this on the table for discussion. Actually, no, I'll be turning to the public first. And Clerk Almas, is there anybody in our audience who would like to have things to say regarding this report?
Certainly, Chair McLeod. We do have a number of attendees. If you wish to speak to this report, please press the raise your hand feature or *9 should you wish to address the committee. There's nobody at this time, Chair McLeod.
Thank you. And so I will look for a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion, which is that staff report HR 2021-01, closure of municipal offices during the 2021 holiday season be received, and that council approve the closure of municipal offices during the 2021 holiday season for the period December 29 through the morning of December 31st, 2021. Mover is Councillor Berman, seconder is Mayor Saunderson. Any questions, comments, or queries of Manager McQuay? And so I'll call the question. All those in favor? That was easy. Thank you so much. That carries. Moving on to departmental updates and discussion. And we will begin with CAO Skinner. Item 9.1 is Ethnic Mosaic Alliance Multicultural Center update. Take it away, CAO Skinner, please.
Chair McLeod, I'm actually going to quickly defer to Executive Director Culver, who's been taking up the mantle to push this forward and stay in liaison with the county and the group on what's happening there.
Thank you, CAO, and thank you, Chair McLeod. So we're still investigating. The deadline for submissions of an application to be considered for the location of the Cultural Center has been pushed to July 15th. So we have a bit more time. We've had one meeting where information was divulged around the application process and what the Ethnic Mosaic Alliance was looking for in a completed center. And we're working on basically understanding whether what we have to offer would be feasible within the context of what they need. So prior to a final application, we'd be returning to council to share that information and let you know that we either found a way to participate or that it just wasn't feasible in our circumstances. I will note that there were a number of communities that were represented at the meeting that was held. So I feel the EMA is going to be well served by whichever municipality is chosen to host the facility.
Should turn on the mic first. I will turn to Clerk Almas to see if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to have comment regarding the Ethnic Mosaic Alliance Multicultural Center.
Chair McLeod, since they're just departmental updates and there's no resolutions, if you want, we can hold it off until number 10, if that works.
That sounds fantastic. And so any questions or comments from the members of the committee? Thank you, Dean. And so we now move on to item number 9.2, Sunset Point Construction Strategy. This is part of the 97% of this meeting that is EDA Culver. Tell us about the Sunset Point Construction Strategy.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, if I could ask Stephanie or the clerk to bring Dave Wood into the conversation, that would be great. He's going to support me, and we're actually going to, if it's okay with you, Chair, go through all three projects in a bundle, one at a time, but and as quickly as possible, because we know that we're trying to make sure council doesn't stay up late. So yeah, and if Stephanie, if you don't mind starting the slides as well, that would be great. So as mentioned, this is a overall a project update on the three major projects that I know have been on the community's radar for a couple of years now. Fisherfield Washrooms, the Awen Water Play, which is the splash pad in colloquial terms, and Sunset Point Playground with revitalization, which is formerly known as Enviro Park. Next slide, please. So the first one to speak to is the Fisherfield Washroom. So many people who have driven by 6th Street and 10th will know that there's work underway there. Actually, as of today, I know they're digging the septic hole, so that's a good thing to happen as well. But we do have water supply complete, hydro services underway, and as I mentioned, the septic system is working on being constructed. The foundation works have actually been poured. You can actually see what the shape and size of the building is based on the foundation right now. And plumbing and electrical conduits are being installed. Up next, we'll be leading to brickwork, where you'll start to see the building take shape. I will note that the expected completion is mid-October. We are experiencing, as with many constructors are, supply delays. It's difficult to get materials these days, and costing is not ideal. And so COVID continues to present challenges, even in one of our subcontractors where they had an outbreak in their office and were forced to close for a little bit. So we're struggling along as best we can in a pandemic period, but we are very excited to see things begin. Stephanie, if you could change the next slide, please. So this is just a recent rendering of what the space will look like at the end of the day. You go to the next slide, please. That's one of the interior spaces, the change rooms. I think the next one too, Stephanie, is also a picture of an interior change room. And then the last slide, I think you'll just see what the foundation looks like. Very exciting for those of us who've been waiting a long time for it. You can move on, Stephanie. So the next one is, this is where my friend Dave Wood will start to help me a little bit with the project, because the next two are related to him. And just really quickly, and I just did this as an ad hoc, and I apologize if it makes things go on a little bit longer, but the last two items, when we look at our waterfront master plan and the intentions of the waterfront master plan, these two are specifically identified. And I thought it would be a really good opportunity just to quickly say that amongst phase 1 of the waterfront master plan, with the completion of these projects, and you'll see a couple of other items in here, I'm just going to say the list. So there is the Sunset Point Playground with some support from EPCOR, I should mention. The Harvest Table with some support from Ray Smith, who donated the pavilion. Wayfinding is something that we're in progress to develop. On Heritage Drive, we have the trail on the east side was one of the early things that was accomplished under the waterfront master plan. The hydro terminus on the west side of the road is actually part of the master plan. It will lead us to eventually having hydro in our dock area. $3 million that council had approved for updating Heritage Drive as a part of the waterfront master plan. The Promenade dock extension is a part of the waterfront master plan. In Harborview area, we have the accessible docks and launch that was a part of the waterfront master plan, the Owen Gathering Circle, the water play project that we'll be speaking to here next. Leasable commercial location is also in the waterfront master plan. And then on the west side of the harbor, the boardwalk extension into the Western Fens is also checking off another piece of the phase 1 of the waterfront master plan. So I just thought it was notable that this waterfront master plan has not gotten dusty, and that we're continuing to move through it a piece at a time. So the first thing to note is the construction schedule. So you'll see in terms of the water play space that the water and sanitary servicing is complete. Anyone who noticed the work being done on Cedar Street, that was what it was. The north parking lot tender and award is complete. So this will be providing some of the extended parking required. We know will be required for the water play area. That parking lot construction will take place between June and September. The water play tendering is ongoing. Mr. Wood is working very hard on finishing that. The award of the water play contract we're expecting to happen in late September. And we're looking for a spring opening in June of 2022. Next slide. So we asked, so there's some pictures that Dave's going to actually walk you through a little bit, just so you're completely aware of what's going on. But this is the big picture, so you can see the orientation and the size of the play space in conjunction of that section of Harborview Park. And with the next slide, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Good evening, Chair McLeod and committee. Do you just go back to the last slide? Yeah, so I mean, just in an overall context, I mean, what's very critical about this water play project is the context of the Alwyn Gathering Circle. It was very important to ensure that the work being done with this did not certainly complementary to the work that was done with the Gathering Circle, and we wanted to complement it, not compete with it. So overall, the siting of it was off to the west of the open space, tucked into the trees, and with a strong relationship towards the watercourse off Cedar Street. We're trying to utilize natural forms and materials to really kind of honor that the earth and the environmental component of the Alwyn messaging. You'll notice as I make the presentation, there are no vertical elements, there are no whirligigs. We're creating more of an experiential water play where we have jets and misting components that are intended to sort of surprise and engage children in various age groups and various abilities to interact with water and do that in a bunch of different creative ways. Again, trying to make sure that we are honoring the work that was done originally in this space. So if we can just go to the next one really quickly. So just as a very quick overview of the space, we have a washroom that will be included in the space with a mechanical room that will help facilitate all the waterworks within the play space. That's under A. Beside that, we're providing 2 outdoor change rooms and just change closets that are supported by a shower post an accessible shower post that'll have nozzles at standing height as well as wheelchair height, and have a foot washing station to ensure everybody can kind of clean and coming in into another facility. The foreground space is supported by a picnic area that's off the trail system. And as we get into the water play, it is very much themed around water. It's stylized as a river kind of cut into Georgian Bay limestone sedimentary rock layers. Thematically, it's about the water cycle, and we've been kind of working to kind of play around with the different ways of exploring water for kids. So on the upper level, I'm going to kind of go in reverse order here. On the upper level, we have a very kind of the big water event. It's a waterfall that does various things. It provides that big water experience, that anticipation event that kids always love in water parks, where the water builds, and sort of like you see the buckets in some places that eventually spill over. This will build up pressure and drop water and kids in a big way. There's jets all throughout that space. So the upper level is a lot about active play. It's a big water zone. It's about multi-age groups, and the water will these three spaces are sort of tiered so that they kind of flow into each other. So there's a little bit of grade change between each one. So the upper level is called the falls. Water will kind of move from that and go through what we're kind of coining as the rapids, and then eventually goes down to the lower area, which is a segregated space that is meant for toddlers and tots and parents to sort of supervise there. It's a little bit offline from some of the more active spaces. And that's kind of the D in that picture. We're also providing ample bike parking in anticipation that the access to this site will be not only by vehicle, but by hopefully by bicycle. And there's a maintenance area in the back for regular testing and the operations that have to happen there, just out of sight and out of physical conflicts with the users of the area.
Next slide.
Yeah, so just a couple kind of visual teasers. So this is the example of the waterfall we were speaking of. It's cantilevered out, so there's a small little room behind it, so actually kids can get in behind the curtain, which will be kind of interesting, and it'll do a bunch of things, including misting. On the water cycle component, we have this idea that what we're going to do is sort of, in order to build that big anticipation vent, we have to sort of dry up all the water. So a lot of the jets will stop in the area as the water pressure builds up and the volumes build up, and there'll be a misting experience to sort of simulate evaporation, which would be pretty incredible to just interact with. And then if we just go to the next slide, there will be a point where the waterfall shuts off as well. And we've had the fortune to continue working with Dr. Duke Redbird on this just to ensure that we're honoring the work that was done through the Auburn Gathering Circle. And through his input, he sort of introduced this idea of putting a Thunderbird as the spirit that brings the storm and the rains. It's part of that whole water cycle interpretation. So when the sheet stops, behind the wall will be this Thunderbird impression, and we've sort of borrowed this one. This is sort of placeholder at the moment. We're fortunate enough to have Dr. Redbird actually, he's designing something special for this space to make that link to the gathering circle. So with the Thunderbird's arrival, upstream storms occur, and then that's when the water rushes back over the waterfall to start the whole process again. Just if we can go to the next slide. And then as we come down through the rapids, we have sort of arching kind of jets to run through and tunnels, and a little bit more water flow coming through this space. And we just go to that final slide there. And then you can sort of see off to the right of this picture that this is kind of a little bit more offline zone with like low burblers and bubblers, kind of themed as a wetland and a marsh. We're calling this the brook. And you can sort of see in the image there the washrooms with the change area and the shower post, and the bike parking and some seating spaces there.
Great. And actually, if we could go back one, Stephanie, just before we go on to Sunset Point, I wanted to make mention, because I know this is top of mind for people, and just to make sure it's repeated as often as it needs to be. One of the reasons why we can do the big water effects at the top is because this is a recycling system. So the water that comes out of the fall will actually enter back into the cistern, be treated, and then be returned to the splash pad throughout the day. So just again, because we know it's top of mind lately about the use of water, we want to make sure that people understand that this is a recycled facility in order to conserve water. Now we can go to the next one. So moving on to the Sunset Point play space, this has been a passion project. Actually, it's become, I think, over the last little while. And I think also to recall that all three of these projects started in 2019. It's just, I think, important to know that there's an immense amount of design work, an immense amount of public consultation went into all of these, not the least of which is Sunset Point by a lot. Some really successful design charrettes with youth, with kids in schools, and on site at the pavilion at Sunset Point. But where we're at right now is water and sanitary, all the servicing has been completed for the washroom. The Firefly Forest servicing, and if you don't know what that is, Dave's going to walk you through that. It's very exciting, but that's all been completed. The Lighthouse play structure, we actually have the Lighthouse in hand now in Collingwood, in storage, waiting to be assembled and placed on site when the time comes. A building permit has been submitted, and this is where we're at right now, is to get the building permit completed so that we can finish off the washroom fabrication and get it on site and installed. At this point, it looks like August will be when we can get it in place. I can't tell you how much COVID has messed with this plan to get this washroom on site. We expected it a lot sooner than this, but it really has been a challenge, and full credit to Dave for all the navigation that he's done to get it here, as again, fingers crossed for August. And then the next piece of the puzzle in phase one is the performance stage, which Dave, again, will get into some detail on here shortly. The next slide. So in phase two, which will happen starting in late June, but you'll really see things start to happen physically around late August. This is where we do our place-based tendering, the award of the contract. We have to remove the equipment that's currently there. We're leaving it for the summer to create a play space for children this summer, and for the volumes of kids we know go there. Construction of the new play space will start in early September, and then we'll be looking for a May opening and completion of all that work, completed park. Next slide. And this again is where I'm going to hand it over to Dave to walk you through. This is actually the best part for me because he's going to go through slides quickly, he promised me, but you're getting the tour that I've always wanted you to have to see all the different components of the park in as much detail as we can provide. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I'm going to try to maintain my professional composure here because 10-year-old Dave tends to pop out when I'm talking about this project, but both of them actually. Just as a quick overview, the Sunset Point Park that we all know and love, the Enviro Park, it was an innovative project back in the day. It's definitely seen its life, and it's tired, and it's time for a rethink. I mean, it was a representation of a Collingwood community using play structures as a way of representing various aspects within our watershed. But it relied heavily on those structures, and there's various structures. They all provide a similar type of play, a very active play for a similar age group. So what we've tried to do with this one is to kind of capture the essence of that, to bring in bring in that local community flavor and that nod to various aspects of the modern day Collingwood. But do that in a slightly different twist. So instead of kind of relying strictly on the structures, we've really put an emphasis on spaces, creating various spaces that appeal to certain types of play and populating those spaces with structures to support that. So the spaces were developed in consultation with the public, in the consultation, the charrettes that we did with the kids that really kind of revealed that it's not, kids don't only just need to have the active play, but there's also an artistic and a creative, a sensory, a games, and a social and simply a reflective type of play that a lot of playgrounds neglect. And we really want to make sure so we can knit the concept together to achieve a playground that was comprehensive in that regard. So I do promise to go. There's a fair few slides, but they're more about eye candy than anything. So I'll take you for a bit of a quick tour. So completed last year is the shade sale. The shade pavilion and the harvest table. I think the harvest table went in like at the end of last week. So we can just quickly go to the next slide. This is a generous donation by Ray Smith in our community, and it's a beautiful structure. It really kind of anchors the entrance and the gateway into Enviro Park, which is something that's always lacked, and it's such a great focal piece. And the red roof I just love so much. The harvest table has been something that has come up through consultations throughout the years as a place to utilize to celebrate local food, and I think there's a lot of great events that could be planned under this pavilion in the future.
Next slide.
The boardwalk and the firefly forest. So I mean, we all love the cedar forest. It is the most cherished part of this playground. It's so unique to have that kind of shade and that open canopy and that forest experience within a playground. So, but it does often kind of become contextual. So what we've tried to do is create better access to it and turn it into its own play feature, something that kind of appeals a little bit more to experience and cognitive play. So the boardwalk is a very low platform boardwalk that sort of rides along the existing grade and allow wheelchair access into the depths of the forest. And if we can just go to the next slide, and there'll be sitting areas and other components. And the firefly component of it is something that we did as a way of kind of enlivening the canopy and bringing in sort of an sound interactive lighting canopy that'll be suspended in various levels of the tree to kind of create that feeling of summer fireflies. There'll be a megaphone that in 2 locations that kids can scream into and create different interactions and light displays with the sound. One of them, which I'll get to in a minute, is located on a small performance stage that's being incorporated in the playground. So whatever's happening in that stage could be programmed and reflected to kind of emulate off that stage and sort of dance through the forest as music's being played or plays happening. So a very exciting piece, and I think it's going to kind of really expand what we know to be Enviro Park to be something a lot bigger and a lot more diverse in its play offerings. Next slide, please. The washroom, we've spoken about that, a long needed facility on this side. We'll just kind of quickly go to the next slide. So it is a custom kit building that will be kind of follow the roof lines of the existing picnic pavilion. In the one image there you see on this side is the kitchenette that was added to the old pavilion. The washroom will be on the other side of that within the forest facing the playground, and it'll have a very similar profile and kind of blend in and look very similar to that as a part of a comprehensive architectural piece. Next slide, please. There's going to be 2 washrooms in there. Both of them are fully accessible and in unisex. The stage will be adjacent to the picnic pavilion. It's something that's really something we see supporting the summer camps that occur at Sunset Point. And if we just go to the next slide. So it's kind of a arc-shaped stage with a backdrop that can be used for plays or small performances, interpretation. It's supported by some sitting walls and a bunch of sawed-off logs that'll be kind of be popping around. So it's meant to be very informal. I think the summer camp kids will use it quite a bit. It also has the ability to, if you go to the next slide, we can pull across a screen, and we've provided a power post and the power source at a projection distance away from the screen, so we could do summer movies in the playground. This is something that was kind of brought up by the Children's Treatment Network as being quite beneficial as well for their community, to provide a sort of a safe and intimate location to do such events like this. So we thought this was a really, really great comprehensive offering for the whole community. Go to the next slide, please. So then we're into the kind of the youth play space, and obviously we can't ignore the active play and the gross motor stuff. So we've done something. This is kind of where we saw doing our anchor play pieces. What we've created is a small mound within the middle of the playground that everything's going to be kind of anchored around. On that mound, we're putting up a 20-foot high lighthouse structure to provide some tribute to the Nottawasaga Lighthouse. Off that mound, we're also providing an elevated zip line. So we have a zip line and parkour area on the lower section to the south of that mound, and then on the lower section, the lighthouse actually has this large curving slide that empties into the bay, which will be a lower kind of rubberized platform area that'll have a ship and a few other things. So I'll just kind of walk you quickly through those 3 active play spaces, the youth play spaces. So go to the next slide, please. So this is a rendering of the lighthouse. As Dean said, it's here in town. It's not assembled yet, but you can sort of see there's a keeper's house that has a bunch of play elements in it at ground level. The lighthouse itself is something that can be climbed up on the inside. It's got a rotating series of panels that doesn't have an interior fall height of more than 18 inches. So kids can climb up through ropes and platforms so they get to the top. At the top, they have great views through a caged kind of lookout. And then just before you get to the top is the entrance to the long slide, which will slide you down and dump you into the bay. And there's climbing walls and a whole bunch of other amenities on this piece, all of which were designed to provide some components for kids of all abilities. The next slide. When you get to the bottom, then you've got a large ship structure to play on with various play elements on it. There's also a bunch of spinners and a hill slide down the embankment that would be on to provide kind of a circulation of flow that is kind of logical to get kids. And what's nice about that is kids coming down the slide don't immediately go back up to the top of the slide and dominate that structure. They're now kind of spit out away from the lighthouse, and they have to make their way back to the lighthouse, which gives a little bit of some good flow there. Next slide, please. And then for the more adventurous kids, they can zip line off the top of the berm and down into a wood chip pit with that kind of terminates into a small parkour set, which will provide a little bit of challenge for some of the older kids. So I mean, some of the ideas to try to provide some elements in this that are going to expand the age groups that are using Enviro Park. Next slide, please. And then on a little bit closer to the forest and adjacent to that kind of boardwalk edge, we've got the tot area, and it's kind of broken also into 3 zones. We've got something we're kind of referring to as the wetlands, the town village, and the Discovery Beach, and I'll kind of take you for a quick tour on those spaces as well. So the village is a neat little three house unit that are connected with tunnels and have various creative place pieces and a little bit of physical aspect. It's intended for kind of a 0 to 5 year age group. And I don't have time to go through all the little knobs and things that are on it that are going to, I think, draw a lot of kids to play around this structure. So this is a kind of our nod to the Collingwood as a village and a settlement. Beside that, we're placing, the next slide is the wetlands, which is kind of a tribute to the Silver Creek wetlands. We've got a little small structure with a slide, some climbing apparatus that are stylized with some cattails and other features. The next area is the Discovery Beach. So this is more just an area for creative and kind of engineering play, where you kind of manipulate objects and play with sand. So it's really just a large sandbox that has a beach entry. So the concrete surface actually kind of slowly just disappears into the sand. In this space on the lower section, we'll have a small, very low flow water tap that kids can turn and get a little dribble of water that goes down the chute into a table where they can make muck. So I apologize to all the parents out there who may be listening right now, but the idea is to get everybody a little bit dirty and have a bit of fun with water and have that aspect. Within the sand play, we've also got a misting post that kids can interact with and turn on with the push button. So it'll create sort of this atmospheric cooling and get everybody a little wet without creating a huge volume of water that needs to be managed or make a mess. So that's also another unique feature in that. And we're hoping to also have that, as I mentioned, the concrete sort of disappears slowly into the sand like a beach. That allows wheelchairs to be able to interact with the sand table while still being in a thin layer of sand and feeling like they're in part of the play environment and playing with the kids that are in that sand area. In that disappearing concrete, we're also hoping to cast in some fossils that kids can excavate with shovels and buckets and see if they can find the fossils on the concrete plane. So I'm really excited about this space. It's going to be a fair bit of fun. Next slide, please. And then separating the, you can't have a playground without swings. So we have a swing area. We've had to move them out of the forest because we just, despite as much as I love the swings that we have today, they are dangerously close to the trees and do not comply with any current safety regulations that we can feel good about. So we've moved them out a little bit closer off to the east side of the lighthouse into its own separate area, which I quite like. It's created a zone. Swings can be often very dangerous in the middle of playgrounds because kids running from one element to another aren't always paying attention to a swing set and the feet that it's delivering towards them. So it's nice to put those off in a separate area. There's also a small little sitting space in a little picnic area for parents to congregate and maybe kind of deal a little bit more with those reflective spaces. We just kind of go to the swings. The next slide there. So I mean, we are maintaining the great part about those swings that we have right now are they're 10-foot swings. They're tall. They've got long chains, and we've replaced that. So we've got 2 belt swings that are of similar height. We're introducing 2 taut swings, a saucer swing, and we also have an accessible swing chair as well that can be used. So it's there's a number of swings. It's a big area, and I think that it will also provide satisfy the loss of the ones that we are currently all enjoying. The next one. Of course, it's central to the space and sort of at that gate into the park and kind of with the back turn to the parking and the roadway is a shaded social hub, which we sort of see as a great place for parents to congregate. It's been positioned to provide that buffer to the road and the parking areas, but also have strong visual sight lines to both the taut area and the youth area. So it's a good place where you can have multiple age kids still socialize and keep an eye on everybody. If you just go to the next slide. So I mean, again, in order to kind of keep that Georgian Bay theme, we're trying to capture the kind of the whimsy of sailboats and playing around with some of the colors and shapes there to reflect that theme. there'll be picnic tables. We also are providing USB charging posts for phones, acknowledging that it is 2021. And we all know that as much as we would love to leave them behind, they are a part of our lives now. So phones and laptops and things like that. So we are accommodating that within the play space. Next slide, please. And then I think it's important to the organization space separates the tots and the youth, despite the fact that they're all visible for the parents. But we've in between them, we've provided a sensory garden that has sloping edges that kind of start off at ground level on one end and rise to a seating wall height. This is to provide a bit of a gateway between the two spaces as you kind of run down the ramp from the youth area towards the tot area, but it also allows elevates the plant material and the flowers and the textures and the other sensory elements that are within the garden to be accessible for someone in a wheelchair to interact with as well. We just go to the next slide. It kind of illustrates that in the thing. So it's about texture, it's about color, it's about wildlife, those other pieces that help stimulate kids' imaginations and growth. Next slide, please.
So I get to jump in now just really quickly because I think by now you realize how very large this playground is. It's massive. It's a massive area. And so, you know, there was a budget that we had to kind of adhere to, or there is a budget we have to adhere to. And so we're navigating that. So the way we did this is we prioritized the refurbishment of the Enviro Park, and at the very minimum, all of its play values, the complete accessibility of the park to make sure that we were doing something that had never been done before in Enviro Park, which is making it accessible to all members of the community. And then also sort of the age groups represented by the current Enviro Park, knowing that that is what Enviro Park is expected to be for the community. But amongst the public consultation, we also got a lot of input about sort of the preteen to early teen age groups and wanting to provide some values there as well. And some of this was actually given to us by preteens who were they were forecasting their future and saying things like, wouldn't it be great to have basketball? Wouldn't it be great to have road hockey? So based on the anticipated budget constraints, we're calling these items provisional. They're part of the master plan of the park, but we recognize that they may have to be phased into a future third phase in order to accomplish them. And we also recognize that it creates an extended use that's over and above some of our key criteria, which were accessibility and making sure that it had a wide variety of accessible applications and then again, the refurbishment that I'd mentioned. So with that in mind, the last two pieces I'll hand over to Dave on the next slide, and he can, what those future plans could be if we're not able to accomplish them under the current umbrella. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so we have two spaces that are kind of knit together in concept. I think they're necessary to support each other, but we have a youth living room and just as a spoiler, the next one is more of a kind of a games court, and we sort of see certainly creating those compatibility between these spaces to allow provide a place for kids for youth to socialize, tweens and early teens, where the social play changes from the active to the more social, and so it's an environment that is clearly not for parents to hang out in. It's one that is meant to allow kids to congregate. There is also a USB charging port being provided in this space. And I think it's also, really important to couple that with the games court because I think there is obviously compatibility. At that age, the performing for others and the watching of others is a very important part of the play. And I think being able to provide those two spaces side by side is critical. So you can just kind of go to the next slide. Here's some examples of kind of tiered seating that teenagers could utilize to gather, relaxation areas. So it's kind of more of sort of a youth living room space, I guess is why we've chosen that terminology. And then supported to the next slide. Actually, you can kind of jump to the next one. So it would be adjacent to a games court that would provide a small net that would be like approximately the size of a hockey net that could be used for, ball hockey or, small soccer practice and goals. They'll be surrounded by basketball nets as well at various levels, with the possibility of providing one that's a bit lower for younger kids or someone in a wheelchair to have better access to. So I mean, as you can see, as we know that be able to provide a sitting area next to here and kind of come off the court and socialize and go on and play a little bit of something, I think is kind of a win, and something we hope to incorporate into the park, because I think it's expanding that age group for Enviro Park certainly gets more value for the space as a whole.
Yep, and I think that's about it, right, Dave? I think that's the end of the presentation. So just wanted to take an opportunity to bring you up to speed, and we know that there's been on the radar. We haven't been able to sort of give you a comprehensive overview the way that we just did. So I'm hope that satisfies any curiosities you have, but we're happy to take any questions as well.
Oh, we've got all the cards up. Let us start with Vice Chair Madigan.
I knew there was some power in being a vice chair. Thank you very much, Chair McLeod. My question goes to Mr. Culver, Dean, and Mr. Wood, but it's going to go to Dean. Dean, do you ever get sick and annoyed of just giving us great news? Does it ever weigh on you the power of positivity that you continue to bring to this committee and to council on a whole? Do you ever get sick of being so fabulous and such a wonderful person, receiving national awards, making the rest of us look like plugs? Do you ever get sick of that?
AED Culver?
I'm getting a little tired of this conversation right now.
So knowing Dean that the answer is no, I have heard through the grapevine that we have something else that is very exciting, and I would like you to bring it up under the updates as well, please, for our community. Coming from the man who just got an award for inclusion and just being an all-around great guy.
AED Culver?
The news that you're talking about is referring to what, Councillor Madigan? Sorry.
Vice Chair Madigan?
So much good news, so little time. The news about something happening within our downtown community. Please and thank you.
Oh, the crosswalk.
Yeah, is it true what I've heard through the grapevine?
Yes. Yeah. So it's thank you, Chair. It's going to be installed on Wednesday evening overnight. So by Thursday morning, hopefully we'll be able to see the inclusion crosswalk in place in all of its color and glory. And yeah, very exciting news. So subject to weather or other unforeseen, but Wednesday night is the calendar night that we're looking to get it done. So it's big. That's a big deal. It's very, very happy about that. Very pleased with all of the support that council has provided. The Rainbow Club, Pride Collingwood. It's just been, that's really, really cool. And so, yeah, really grateful, and thanks for the opportunity to share that formally.
Anything else, Vice Chair Madigan?
Yes, I did. If I can also give praise, not to Dean anymore. You're done. You can turn up. Dave, thank you very much. I've been lucky enough to sit on council for 6.5 years, and you've been involved in a lot of great things. But to see your enthusiasm here is just reflective of the years and years of hard work and bringing some great things for youth into our community. And I thank you very much. I've been lucky enough to sit through a couple presentations all the way back from the start. So I really appreciate what you've done and what you've given to our community. And to see your excitement tonight will be reflective, hopefully, on the thousands of our local kids that will be able to enjoy all the great things that you've helped accomplish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Madigan. I appreciate that.
Councillor Berman.
You had to let him go first. Thank you, Madam Chair. I like that last slide with the basketball court and whatnot, because I see some new ways that we can settle split decisions on council. But seriously, Dean, after that overwhelming presentation, and Dave, could you please bring up an earlier slide that showed the timelines, because now I can actually relate to a little more to what involved.
Yeah, I'll ask Stephanie to bring it back up if she could, please. And then you just have to let me know which timeline you're looking to.
Just there was one that talked about the completion, or the various stages in the hopeful completion date
for Sunset Point.
For Sunset Point and for the WAD for numbers 2 and 3.
Okay, Stephanie, if you didn't mind, that would be great.
I think I can remember a time when we were told that the Sunset Point Park would close on Labor Day and reopen on Thanksgiving Day. And it was a dream within a dream. And
there was a lot of optimistic thinking early on, and a lot of optimistic thinking. So this is the Sunset Point. This is phase 1, and there are 2 phases that are currently on our construction schedule. Is there anything you'd like us to speak to specifically?
Nope, just do the phase 1. Is there a slide for the phase 2? May 2022, excellent. And for the water, for the not toddler splash pad? June 2022. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Really impressive, both of you.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd apologize. I do apologize for the length of time it's taken to get to completion on these, but I hopefully through this presentation you can see the complexity involved. There are a number of elements that we didn't speak to. The soils that we have to work with at the Allen water play didn't help us much, so the design had to change in order to be able to support the slabs that the water play happens on. We had a tender that went out for the parking lot that came back well beyond our budget. And so we had to re-tender it and provide an opportunity for more bids, which we got, and the price came within close to what we were expecting. There's just been a number of challenges. COVID, one of our providers in the Sunset Point had COVID in their organization twice, which caused significant delays. So yeah, again, my apologies for whatever they're worth, but hopefully you can see through the complexity and scope of all of these projects that I guess in hindsight seems like it might have been necessary, despite all my optimistic thinking early on.
Anything else, Councilor Berman? Oh, there we go. Mayor Saunderson.
Yeah, just very exciting stuff. Thank you for the thorough update, and it's clear that a lot of great work has gone in there. And I think I understood from an earlier presentation with Director Culver that the feedback mechanism, the interactive engagement for the youth that we used could be used as a model going forward, I think, because of it was somewhat revolutionary. Is that right?
Yeah, in my opinion, and I'm going to give credit to this will be Dave's chance to turn red. Because I gave him full credit. This modes of play approach that he basically invented, in my opinion, I've not seen it before, where it was identified to go to the youth and ask them how they play, to learn from how they play, in order to create the design. In my mind, was revolutionary. There's a lot of borrowing in our industry, a lot of steal from this, steal from that, and then ad hoc kind of weld it together and call it a playground. And there's lots of great examples of that being successful, but I really love that this design went to the heart of our community. It went to the users of our community and the youth that are going to use it, went to their parents. It became a manifestation. And this is where accessibility could really get captured, because talking about things in a sensory sense, for example, speaks to a level of universality of this playground that isn't present in many playgrounds. So really I can't say enough about the approach that Dave invented and that council has supported in order for us to get to this place where I am so proud of what this is going to be. Not just turning a completely inaccessible playground into an accessible playground, but going beyond that to provide stimulation for people on the autism disorder, providing quiet play for those youth who just don't want to get into the Lord of the Flies fight to the top of the lighthouse at that time. There's all kinds of opportunity for youth to enjoy this playground, and hopefully for their parents to enjoy seeing youth playing on the playground as well.
Well, thank you, Dave, for that groundbreaking stuff, and thank you. My only last question is, Is there going to be some adult only times for the 10-year-old and all of us?
Through you, Chair, we're booking the sand pit for council. We want to make sure that we can, and we're going to get it super mucky.
Yeah, I can see that coming. Yep. Thank you.
You could probably charge admission to that for a little bit of extra revenue.
Any other questions from the committee? I have a couple, and I really hope I am not throwing cold water, as it were, on these plans. How there was discussion of things being over budget because of the increasing price of lumber. And I know that we had troubles with our boardwalk with timing because of inavailability of wood and so on. How much are we over budget?
So through you, Chair, that's a great question. I don't think it throws cold water on the project at all. I think it actually is it's the same realistic approach that we've been taking. I can say now that the Fisherfield project is currently on budget, subject again to any material surprises that come along, but none have appeared so far. We're working and adjusting. We adjust within the plan, so certain finishings might have to get pulled off in order to be able to afford the infrastructure pieces. So that's real, and that's part of a project management. So we're doing that, and I don't think we've had to compromise the structure significantly in any way at all. Currently, we're on budget with respect to the Awen water play. But that's in light of the fact that we still have tenders to go out for certain construction. And until we get all of those numbers in, I can't say that we wouldn't end up over budget, but I can say with certainty that we are not currently over budget. And at Sunset Point, the adjustment we've made is just recognizing the probability that by the time we complete the full tendering of all of the parts, again, there's a lot of expertise coming from Dave and coming from others to help us determine what the probable cost will be. These extended parts of the playground, and I want to make sure that's emphasized, the extended parts are the parts that we're considering to be provisional. It's not yet that we haven't had any evidence that the base return of the playground would be compromised by budget at this point. So I would not want to concern anybody about any overspending. We're being very responsible, managing things absolutely to the best of our ability within the COVID context, and understanding that there are unforeseens. But at the same time, there's no reason to believe that these won't land on budget at this point.
Okay.
If we were in a position where budget had to be, if we were getting to a place where we said, okay, we've got tenders back that show us going over budget, we'll have to be back in front of council to talk to you about that. So nothing's over budget at this time.
Super, thank you. And Mr. Wood, you said that there were no whirly gigs on the Awen play place, but it seems to me that you may have done a fair amount of whirly gigging on Sunset Point. So thank you. Very interesting stuff. In the absence of further questions from the committee, I will say thank you, gentlemen, and I will invite public delegations, item number 10 on our agenda, for 5-minute question periods each. Are there any questions from our attendees, Clerk Almas?
Yes, Chair McLeod, we have Matthew Pretty would like to address the committee. So we will allow him to speak.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in with this last portion. Good to hear about the updates and the modernizing of the parks. The parking at Harborview will be useful from the restaurants that are there. That last circle before the field, that's going to be really useful. One recommendation is to paint the paths, to paint possible medians on the path to give a little bit more, left and right for people that are biking. That can be a busy area in there. Wintertime, people are doing the Nordic pole walking. That's fun. So the transition from that water park to winter will be quite interesting. Blue Mountain does an interesting transition by using snow plows to mound snow to shape over the golf playground they have. So I wonder what the winter design will look like there, if that's to be for skating too. I'm not too sure if that's part of the plan as well. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. And great job this year plowing the paths through Harborview Park. That was really useful. This year you had the machine that was plowing the paths around Harborview Park, and that was really, really good to see, actually. It kept people in the park and enjoying the park. So well done there. That was a good investment. I just want to share with you guys that, it is a sad time with regards to this whole lockdown, and I think people are ready for options again. And obviously next Monday, or as CAO was saying, Saturday, there could be an early opening. Farmers market looks relatively busy. Everything's in play. And I see the new name for the rainbow symbol, which is, when water mixes with light, called the diversity path. Let's call it the diversity path. And that's great, and it means something to everybody. We don't have to spell it out and say, this is what this is what that is. And that's really not the way, right? And kids, you need to allow kids to experience and see things in the world and not be told all the time, that's that and this is that, let them be kids. And then that's a really big deal, especially at this time, right? We don't want to be scaring people with doomsday scenarios. I've been trying to socially distance myself from people that are going on about that. And you know what? I'm not accepting it. I'm just not accepting the doomsday scenario. We're better than that, and we're going to get through this. And like we saw in the earlier meeting, the financial records for people living alone is so expensive. Those folk from the city of Barrie and the lady from town here talking about those numbers, living alone is expensive. And we need to get through that type of living. We need to come together and know the real cost and what it takes to raise a family and to sustain, to live in the sustainable times. So congratulations, team. I'm probably going to take a break from town council for a while. I think I've had enough, but I just want to say thank you. And it's time for us to really see the reality of what's happening. So all the best, everyone. Be safe and keep doing your best with your own personal families and your personal businesses, and obviously the town of Collingwood as is. So thanks, guys. I'm going to sign off for a while. I hope everyone has a good summer.
Thanks, Mr. Pretty. Anyone else, Clerk Almas?
No, there's not, Chair McLeod. I think that's it for our public delegations.
Thank you, which brings us to item number 11, other business. And I know that there is one item because it's mine, but I'll see if there's any other business from members of this committee. Excellent. So I would just like an update on how things went this past weekend at Sunset Point, because I believe we had quite a crowd. And there are some councillors who have sent me an email asking if I would ask how things went. And I think that there he is now. Thank you, Chief Parr, for joining us. Perhaps you, and I, there we go. And there is AED Culver. How did things go this weekend at Sunset Point, AED Culver?
Thank you, Chair. It was full. It was all of our waterfront parks were full as expected. It was very hot temperatures and everybody wanted to get as close to the water as possible. But I will say I was in the parks a lot this weekend and saw nothing that we didn't expect. We had a significant application of resources to the waterfront parks, over 200 hours for Sunset Point alone to deal with garbage that we knew would be present. Certainly, I know that we can't be there 100% of the time. There is space in between. There were some wind events on Friday and Saturday that I know caused a little bit of havoc, but our crews were there to clean it up. And definitely, at least with what I observed, people were spacing, they were respectful. So as busy as they were, I call it a good parks weekend.
Chief Parr, do you have anything to add to what AED Culver just had to say?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Bylaw staff gave me a little update. put 84 hours in at the parks, and the majority of that was at Sunset Park. As a result of how busy the park it was, sometimes taking 2 officers 2+ hours to complete a patrol at the park. And that was assisting with the parking app or answering questions or whatever it was to do public service with people at the park. So this only created with breaks that only 3 rounds in the park in a 7-hour period, but it was very successful, especially with the interaction with the staff or with the people attending the park. The garbage, they just said that as of 9 p.m. officers did not observe the garbage, but we'll comment that park staff did a fantastic job, like always, dumping the bins, sorry, and ensuring the park was clean and safe for all. Some of the issues was just some parking, unauthorized use of park, overnight camping, barbecuing in areas not. So that it was all just communicating to the people what the rules were, and a little off-leash dogs were some of the issues. So other than that, they were busy, but it went really well. And there's a little update about Millennium and Heritage. One of our officers was able to go there a few times over the weekend, said that it was in really good shape. The acceptable parking, there was always availability to get 2 cars down side by side. So he said it was normal practice out there, and as such, there was no tickets written in that area. So it went also very well this weekend too.
Thank you. And I can report that at 8:25 this morning, when I walked through Sunset Point, it was spick and span. Clean, very clean, and the work, any cleanup work that was required had certainly been accomplished by that time. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So failing any other business, I will look for item number 12, which is our adjournment. There we go. Vice Chair Madigan has moved to adjourn, and I don't believe we need a seconder. I think we just need to call that question. All those in favor? We stand adjourned at 7:06 p.m. Thank you so much.